Hey there! Welcome back to another video. This time it is a review of the 2017 action sci-fi comedy multi-genre motion picture, The Belko Experiment. Now, this is a film that I was curious about. I liked the trailer. I liked the idea. James Gunn was the guy who wrote the screenplay. And I just didn't really get around to watching it until recently. And I have to say, I liked it. I liked the film. I would have loved the movie if it didn't have an ending that I personally felt came out of left field, and that really ended up hurting the film. But despite that, I would have to say it's one of my favorite films that I've seen this year. The Belko Experiment is directed by Greg McLean, and it features a screenplay by James Gunn. It also features a score by Tyler Bates. It's edited by Julia Wong. It has a very quick running time. It's 88 minutes. It goes by super fast, like a strike of lightning. Just super quick, fast-paced movie. That's one of the many things about it that I really liked, is that this is not a boring movie. This is a movie that gets going fast. It's like a runaway minecart. It doesn't let up, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't take too long building its characters. It doesn't take too long getting into the nitty-gritty or the nitty-gory, so to speak. It just keeps going, and I think that really is a big boon to this film. I know a lot of critics weren't that big on the movie. A lot of critics criticized it for being cliched, being too much like Battle Royale, or so on. But a lot of these same critics would also praise the Hunger Games, which I don't really get that. This is at least more different than that. I never really felt while I was watching the Belko Experiment that I was just watching Battle Royale again. Also, the Belko Experiment really benefits from some great practical effects. Like, this is a really good movie to showcase why we still need practical effects, why practical effects should be seen more in films today. This film costs $5 million, and every bit of it is on the screen. There's some kind of sort of cheap-looking CGI in the beginning with the building and some stuff, but for the most part, it really does look like a bigger budgeted movie than a $5 million production, especially with the practical effects. There's practical blood squibs, there's actual real blood, like practical blood, corn syrup and food coloring, splattering everywhere. It's not CGI. When people get shot or maimed or killed, it's done practically. When people's heads explode in this movie, and there's a lot of head exploding sequences, their heads pop like watermelons, and it's done with practical makeup effects. And it is so much more effective because of that. I'm sick and tired of studios and filmmakers and so on using CGI as just a reason to be lazy. Lazy, just be like, we don't really want to put the time and effort into doing this practically, thinking outside of the box, or just doing it practically because it's actually more effective. Let's just do it with a computer because it's easier. And that is something that I see so much in so many films, and it was really refreshing to see the Belko Experiment didn't fall in that category. And for a film that has such a crazy plot and such a absolutely enormous body count, it really did help the film that it had these great practical effects. Now, the movie also features a really stellar cast, spearheaded by Tony Goldwyn, who was a very underrated actor. He was the villain in the movie Ghost. He's been in a few other films over his career. It was really cool to see Tony Goldwyn in a film that has come out recently. It's a modern film, and he has a big role in it. And he absolutely nails the role as Barry Norris, the COO of Belko, and he also ends up becoming the film's villain. And Tony Goldwyn is just great in this role. He really does showcase how underrated of an actor he is, and I would hope that his performance in this would lead to more roles for him, because he definitely deserves it. This is one of, if not the best performance I've seen from him. He really does nail it. He's great. He's a villain you love to hate, and it was really nice to see a villain like that again in a modern day movie. John Gallagher Jr. is the star, though. He plays Mike. You know, I relate to the guy, not just because he has the same name as me, but because the way he handles things, the way he goes about stuff is very similar to how I would handle them. And John Gallagher Jr. also does a really good job. He's fantastic in this role. He's an everyman. He's a likable guy. The performance is really good. This is a guy I want to see more from. Also, this movie is, in essence, a final guy film. For once, we finally have I mean, there was a few other exceptions, like Deliver Us from Evil with Eric Bana, but there isn't very many. There's not very many action, horror. Well, there's some horror elements here, but it really is more of a sci-fi action movie. But with this type of film that has this kind of crazy plot line with gore and blood and guts, and has a horror element to it, most of the time it's a final girl. This time, that's not the case, and that was really refreshing. I loved seeing that, and I'm going to use that word repeatedly in this review, because this is a refreshing film for the most part. Practical effects, a straightforward plot line that isn't that hard to follow, and it doesn't have a million plots within one another, and that's what made the ending so upsetting to me, is because it's not like the rest of the film, and I'll talk about that more in depth later in the review. But I know a lot of critics, they criticized it because they said that it lacks subversive smarts to consistently engage once the carnage kicks in. What the fuck are you talking about? I really honestly had to say that. I'm going to defend this movie. The subversive smarts that they're wanting out of the film is what the film shoehorns in the end of the movie, and it doesn't fit with the rest of the film. So I don't really think it needed that. It wasn't necessary. The film's selling factor was that it was a straightforward, crazy carnage action sci-fi movie with a likable lead and some likable characters and a great villain and really impressive practical gore effects. That is what is the film's strongest suit, or strongest suits, not its subversive smarts. I don't give a fuck about the subtext, okay? Don't give a fuck. I'm here to be entertained, and if you want to have subtext, that's fine. I don't have an issue with that. See, I'm taking a film studies class, and I have to be honest, I find this mindset that a lot of film scholars have and critics have nowadays, that just a movie that has a straightforward plot is considered to be, oh, that's formulaic. Oh, there's not enough to it there. It needs subtext. Why does everything need subtext? Sometimes all I need is just a film that's a survival of the fittest inside a business complex in a building where shit happens, there's an experiment going on, people have to kill each other, and people have to survive. And that is all I need. That's all I ask. That's all I need. And for the most part, that's really what I got, which I was very pleased with. But yeah, really good cast. John Gallagher Jr., Tony Goldwyn, Adria Arjona. I don't know if I said her name, Adria Arjona, as Leandra Flores. I thought she was not only beautiful, but she was fantastic. I thought she was great in the role as Leandra. She had really wonderful chemistry with John Gallagher Jr.'s character Mike. I bought that these two had a relationship with one another, and I loved that she had balls, but at the same time it was believable, and she had charisma. She was a charismatic character, and while I was watching her performance, I was like, man, I wish she played Wonder Woman. I really do. Because you can buy her in a physical role where she's being a badass, but then she also carries her own weight when it comes to line delivery and acting and other things. Really, if you wanted to have an exotic actress to play Wonder Woman, great choice. I wish she was Wonder Woman. Then you also have John C. McGinley, who you've seen in a lot of things, Scrubs and various other movies. He's great in pretty much a lot of... He's really, really a great supporting actor. And he plays sleazebags really well. And he plays another sleazebag in this as Wendell Dukes. You also have Melonie Diaz, who plays a new hire at Belko. And she pretty much hides throughout the, excuse me, she hides in the building while shit is hitting the fan and crazy shit is going on. That's essentially what her character is. She's a woman of a few words and gets a few things done and so on. She's kind of like the person who's lost in the shuffle amongst all the chaos. And there's a few other actors as well, including Michael Rooker, who has a bit role as Bud Melks. You have Sean Gunn, who's actually in the movie himself as a cafeteria worker. Michael Rooker's only in it for a little bit, though, because he doesn't last long. I think he's actually one of the first to die, that was really too bad, because you have Michael Rooker. And, the rest of the cast is fine, but Michael Rooker could have lasted a little bit longer, because it's Michael Rooker. I mean, compared to the other people, why did the nerdy guy have to live longer than Michael Rooker? I mean, it's Michael Rooker we're talking about, okay? But, it was nice to see him. It definitely was nice to see him in a movie like this. And I don't really want to give too much away about the film because I want people to see it. People who haven't seen it yet, I do want you to check it out because it's one of those movies where you really need to see it to appreciate the just batshit craziness that is in this movie. Now, I've seen films that are probably more crazy in terms of their subject material, but this is still way off the charts in terms of the carnage meter, okay? There's blood all over the walls, there's people getting shot in the head repeatedly, there's heads exploding, there's all kinds of craziness, and it is a very enjoyable, entertaining movie that has a nice black sense of humor at times. I like the music choices. It has these Spanish or Mexican covers of popular oldie songs, which is an interesting choice and gives the film it gives it an interesting atmosphere. The concept is great. While yes, it isn't 100% original, I don't care because I really honestly do not condemn a movie for not being 100% original when it comes to its plot. I don't think that's fair to a film. I don't think that's fair to the screenwriters. I don't think that's fair to the filmmakers because we live in an age nowadays where to expect a 100% original idea in a movie, to me personally, is completely and totally unrealistic. And it's unfair because there's been millions of films that have been made since the invention of the motion picture or the movie, that there is no possible way that there is some 100% original idea lying in the weeds waiting for somebody to find it. There is absolutely no fucking way that that's the case. So what I look for is a film that maybe it takes an idea like Battle Royale, like some elements from Battle Royale, but it still makes it its own film. And I felt that way about the Belko Experiment. I think it did make it its own film. I think it did have its own identity. And in large part, that definitely goes to Greg McLean's direction. McLean, not McLean. Mr. Clean. No, Greg McLean's direction. full of full of verve, energy, life. This is a guy who definitely had a passion for this project, and it shows. James Gunn's screenplay is also well crafted, well put together. There isn't a lot of character development, but there's enough development in terms of the characters' personalities that they end up making an impression on you, that they are likable, that you don't want some of them to die. And it is pretty tragic when some of these characters do end up dying, because you don't want them to die, because you've learned to like them and you want them to survive. Going off of that, I'm going to go into major spoilers here before on a couple of the things about it that I didn't think quite worked, and then I will bid my adieu, so to speak, Now, speaking of characters that you don't want to die, Mike's girlfriend, Leandra, she survives throughout much of the movie. She's one of the last few that are still alive. And she ends up getting killed in a way that I just felt was... I know why they did it, because they're setting it up for Mike being the only guy who's survived. He's the lone survivor. But I think there's a way you could have made it work where she could have survived too. I'm just that kind of guy sometimes. I'm a sucker for that kind of film. Not necessarily just a straight-up happy ending, because regardless, they're going to be emotionally and psychologically scarred for the rest of their lives after this. But, Mike's been through enough shit already. He didn't really need to also lose his girlfriend, lose the love of his life. So, I would have appreciated the film even more if they found a way for her to survive. My second point ties in, when it comes to the film not working quite as well as it should, or it could, goes to the sort of ambiguity of what this experiment is. And I know it's a test, and there's these guys who've been hired by the government to test how people would react in situations like this. A psychological experiment. What would happen if you had all these workers in a building and you locked them up and you gave them demands over the loudspeaker and said, you must kill 30 people within the next 2 hours or 60 people will die, and what would people do? Experiment involving human nature and so on. I get it. But other than that, what really is the purpose? And that's not really that well developed. Like, what is it? Just some crazy guy with more money than he knows what to do with is just doing this to people? It just doesn't. Or was it a government guy, or maybe he was working with the government but now he's not? I don't. That's not as clear as it could be. And then we come to the film's ultimate failing to me. Its ending. It's got a clever way for Mike to take out the puppeteers, the guys behind the curtain, and then it fucks it all up with a pretentious ending that pulls the rug out right from underneath you, smacks you right in the face, kicks you in the balls, and it's not only a pretentious ending that has no place in the film, in my opinion, or it definitely doesn't fit with the rest of the movie, it also is a sequel bait ending for a sequel that will never happen. Let's be honest. The movie, I think it made a profit, made $11 million on a $5 million budget, but that's not enough for a sequel. At least not a good one. We might get some direct-to-video piece of shit. But the ending, I hate. I hate endings like this, where they just, out of nowhere, they're like, oh, look, he's not the only one. There's all these other people who have been experimented on, and the result has been pretty much the same. And he's just a cog in the machine, and whatever. Just absolutely unnecessary extra touch to the film that doesn't fit the rest of the movie. The whole tone of the film is comedic and over the top, and is in a lot of ways a throwback to like an 80s or 90s movie. Then you have the ending, which isn't satisfying, which it leaves things too open-ended, so the point you're like, well, what is Mike's fate? I don't know what his fate is. We have no idea. Now preparing for phase 2. What the fuck is phase 2? And why would you end your film on a fucking cliffhanger? Especially for a movie that really would hold up just fine as a standalone. Does not need a sequel. I don't want to see a sequel. I definitely didn't want to see some pretentious fucking bullshit at the end with all these TV screens, with all these other people who have also been experimented on in Belko or other places or whatever. That is not at all what I wanted out of the movie. And then even the final battle between Mike and Barry, between John and John Gallagher Jr. and Tony Goldwyn, even that had a sort of pretentious little vibe to it, because when he's fighting him, he accidentally hits something that has that plays something on a projection screen, and it's a business, kind of a business presentation for Belko, and like a promo for Belko. And he kills Tony with the tape dispenser. And I was just like, he kills Barry with the tape dispenser, and it's got this music in the background that's trying to, I don't know what they're going with there. Probably like the savage mentality comes out of anybody, even somebody like Mike, who doesn't want to kill anybody, hasn't tried to kill anybody throughout the entire movie, and even he will resort to his animal instincts, his primordial instincts, by the end of the movie when survival is at stake. I just would have preferred if he just kicked his ass and then, maybe hit him with a tape dispenser, but then pistol fucked him or something. Something extra than just that. But that's just me personally, because Barry deserved it. Barry deserved like a painful death, not just, and that was pretty painful, getting bludgeoned to death with a tape dispenser. But I would have liked to have seen more creativity, because it's a movie that had heads exploding, and the ending is just he's bashing his head in with a tape dispenser. Great practical effect. It's pretty brutal, but at the same time, a little more creativity would have been nice to see. That being said, though, I've still thoroughly enjoyed the Belko Experiment. I didn't like the ending. I would have liked to have seen Leandra's character survive. But those are really the only issues I had with the film. And like one scene that I don't even know why was even there. I think it was trying to establish the setting, and it was just a random scene in the movie where a dog just peed on the security gate. And then it just cut back to whatever was going on with the plot of the movie. I don't know what the point of that was. It wasn't funny. It was just like, why the fuck is why is there a dog peeing on the security gate? Like, it just, I guess it was supposed to be like a funny random bit, but it just didn't work. It was just distracting. It stuck out like a sore thumb. But that's just a little nitpick. And overall, though, I enjoyed it. I would have to say it is one of my favorite films that I've seen this year. Not one of my favorite films of all time, but definitely I definitely picked this up on home video soon. I think it already came out, but I'll pick it up sometime in the future for my collection, because I did enjoy it. It was a fast-paced, fun, entertaining movie. There were some problems, but overall they didn't kill the film for me. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the review, and as always, I will see you guys later. See ya.